Darius Gaiden hit the arcades in 1994 to a very welcoming reception. Gone is the triple screen or dual screen display, but that's okay, because what we get in return are some of the most beautiful Darius graphics to date. Featuring massive bosses, trippy backgrounds, and all manner of new enemies, Darius Gaiden has everything to bring in new fans to the Darius franchise. The gameplay has also been given a tweak. Your bombs and main shot are now on the same button, plus it's easier to power up, and you have an amazingly cool smart bomb. That's not all though. You can now capture certain enemies by destroying the orb atop of their head before the actual enemy. Manage to do this and the orb will float towards you and away from the enemy. Capture it and that baby is yours. Sadly, they don't last as far as the boss battle. Finally, we have the audio. Need I say anything? Fantastic. The PlayStation port came to us from Intebec. Now, real serious Japanese gamers, especially those from the Super Famicom days, will know Intebec released nothing but crap. Darius Gaiden on the PlayStation kinda falls into that category, a little. So the game starts off with an all new fresh CG intro, but to be honest, it's not that impressive, plus the video compression is pretty poor. However, that's not the game's biggest problem. That comes from the way it runs. You see, the jerky scrolling is not a fault of the capture or emulation, this was played on real hardware after all, but the way it was programmed. This port also suffers from slowdown more than the other ports, and tends to have choppier animation. If you'd never seen the arcade, you'd think this was great, but sadly it's not as good as it should have been. Well, what can I say about the Saturn port of Darius Gaiden? Not a lot really. It's pretty much arcade perfect apart from a very brief loading time of 2 seconds between stages. The animation is top quality, the audio is right, and all the arcade transparent effects are present. It's as close as the arcade you're going to get at home, because even the emulated version on the PlayStation 2 has slowdown issues, more than the original PlayStation port, and it runs in horrible 480i mode. Nope, the Saturn in my opinion is where you want to be when it comes to spending your cash on Darius Gaiden. Or is it? We still have one more port to look at. The Windows 95 port is actually based upon the Saturn version of the game. It even proudly states this in the game's Darius info section. The port was handled by Fukuoka Shoken. They've done a fantastic job, however the port isn't quite as good as the Saturn game it's ported from. First, let me just explain that the screen ratio is 4:3, however since this game wasn't designed to run on modern PCs, this was the best I could do when it came to capturing the footage. Now the problem with this port isn't the screen resolution, but the slight loading times before bosses and well, that's it actually. Well, the CD audio is too low and the sound effects are different than the Saturn game, but overall this is a very good port. Just a shame I couldn't get my joystick to work with it. And let's take a look at all those versions of Darius Gaiden running side by side. Which version do you think is the best?
close your head.